This is the ultimate question. What phone should I buy today? Not everyone has $1,000 to spend on a phone, but at $550 or less, this is a nice looking choice. This phone is known for the camera and operating system, and that's about it. But let's talk about it first, because there's a lot to talk about. Should you buy the Google Pixel 4 XL in 2020? Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review. Check out the social media listed above in the description for some extras. Alright, let's review this flawed masterpiece. This is one of the most normal screens you'll find on a newer flagship phone. It's a flat 6.3-inch 1440p OLED display with a pixel density of 534. There is a small chin at the bottom and an obvious forehead, but there's no notch or hole punch in the display. It has a 19:9 screen ratio and looks absolutely amazing. Then the best part of the screen is the refresh rate, which is 90 Hz. It is variable to save battery life, but I never really had an issue with that. It's super smooth with everything I throw at it, and when you switch to 60 Hz for a while, you start to realize that lacking consistent 90 Hz is not really that big of an issue. With that said, you can force it in the developer options, but I chose not to. There is no fingerprint scanner in this screen, which is somewhat surprising, but it's just because Google doubled down on the face detection. But I will talk about that more a little bit later. This screen supports ambient EQ, which is pretty much like True Tone, but for Android. I chose to leave it off. It also supports the ambient display, which is now called idle lock screen for some reason. Similar to what the Moto Z does, this phone has motion sense and reacts to you hovering over the screen, allowing you to see more of the phone without having to touch the phone. This is perfect for notifications and other things similar to that. As for the quality of the screen, it is a Samsung display, so of course it's going to look amazing. The interesting thing is that this phone got a 90 Hz 1440p display, yet Samsung still hasn't put that in their phones. At 3,700 milliamps, you would think that this is a big battery. One of the biggest complaints about this phone was the battery life, and I'm here to tell you that the battery life is decent. It lasts all day with no issues for me, but I can see why people don't like this battery. It could be better, and it should be given the size, but there's a lot of stuff powering this phone, not to mention the 90 Hz support. Here's the Geekbench 4 battery test stats, which are alright. The phone supports 18-watt charging, which sounds good, but it's the same as the original Pixel. I wish they would add 25-watt or even 45-watt charging, but it's whatever. There is wireless charging on this phone, even the option for fast wireless charging, but only with the Pixel stand. 5-watt wireless charging is supported on all other chargers. The port on the bottom is USB-C, making life easy, just like Google always has with the Pixel line. The battery isn't bad, but the poor performance doesn't really help if you're interested in buying this phone used. But you can charge the phone fast, so it's not terrible. As expected, the cameras are outstanding on this phone, but at the same time, they can be a little bit disappointing. The cameras itself look amazing, whether you're using the standard or telephoto sensor. It is just weird seeing that there's only 3 cameras on this phone. The main camera is a 12.2 megapixel sensor with optical image stabilization, along with electronic image stabilization. I don't really need to talk too much about the camera because the shots that this camera takes is absolutely amazing. This is nothing new on Pixel phones, and it's mainly because of the Pixel Neural Core that everything looks amazing. Google added astrophotography, which looks really cool, but it takes some time to set up. It's better for places with lots of visible stars, for sure. The mix of software and hardware combine to make these amazing shots, and that follows through to the telephoto camera. This camera activates when you zoom in 2 times, and it's a 16 megapixel sensor. Shots come out looking similar to the standard sensor, as expected, but they can look a little bit brighter in some shots, mainly during dimly lit shots. Now these aren't bad cameras, it's just weird that they opted for the dual camera setup while other flagship devices came with at least 3 sensors on the rear. As for video recording, you get the exact same recording that the original Pixel had. Yep, that is correct. No 4K at 60 frames per second here, not with the stock app at least. Just 4K 30 frames per second. As for the front camera, I am a little bit disappointed. Google dropped the wide-angle camera, which is fine in my eyes, but they also moved from the 8 megapixel focusable camera to an 8 megapixel fixed focus camera. Still, portrait shots look awesome, and the edge detection is outstanding. This is probably due to the infrared tech on the top of the phone that measures depth. As for video recording on the front, you just get 1080p at 30 frames per second. weak. Overall, this is a nice set of cameras, but not really the best for video recording. To be fair, the Pixel line has never been the best for video, especially at the $900 new price tag. Now, the specs of this phone are so-so. For the price, they are disappointing, but let me tell you about them first. This is a large and heavy phone at 193 grams, but it's slightly lighter than some other flagship phones in its class. This phone comes with a Snapdragon 855 chip with 6GB of RAM, neither that proved to be slow. This is the first RAM bump in the Pixel lineup, and I wish that this phone had a Snapdragon 855 Plus, but the Snapdragon 855 is no joke. I never experienced any lag when using this phone, so you shouldn't either. This phone comes in 64 or 128GB forms, which is pretty annoying seeing that there's no way to expand that. You still get the active edge, just like the Pixel 2 and Pixel 3, but it is still gimmicky to me. The dual speakers sound nice, but it is somewhat obvious that the top speaker isn't as loud as the bottom speaker. The phone is still water resistant with an IP68 rating, and the back of the phone is glass, as expected. Gone is the curved back, as well as the frosted back. Well, some do, but mine is just a glossy fingerprint magnet. The middle of the phone is metal, and the colored power button is a nice little touch. And that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, there's radar in this phone, which is pretty interesting. MotionSense uses a radar sensor to sense movement nearby, so you can change and pause music without even touching the phone. It's a cool feature when it works, and sometimes it would either not work, or it would pause music when I would do like a small movement, but it works a lot better than I was told. Still a little gimmicky, but I use this for the face detection, which is pretty accurate and really fast. Kind of crazy to see, but this actually works when you're wearing a mask too. This is perfect for, well, you know. So should you buy this phone in 2020? At a reasonable price, I would say yes. The point of using a Pixel phone is to experience pure Android, but over the last few years, it's been debatable whether or not the right corners were cut. This year, I think they did really good. They just missed on the battery and the camera section. Well, the lack of cameras, I should say. I love using Pixel phones because they just work so well and so fast, and adding the 90Hz display makes the phone seem even faster. Everything in this phone is for a reasonable person, but sometimes you want more than 128GB of storage, an ultra-wide camera, 4K video at 60 frames per second, or a better battery. While this phone isn't perfect, I'm glad that it does exist. I just wish that the price was a lot less. And that's all I wanted to talk about. Thanks for watching my review of the Google Pixel 4 XL. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section or message me on Twitter. I get bored over there. Also, check out the social media listed above, subscribe and hit the bell button if you like the channel and want to see more videos. Thanks for watching.